Right on. So welcome everyone again. Nice long weekend here, Father's Day weekend. So happy Father's Day to everyone out there. And just wanted to do a little session here on kind of data sources. I know over the months I've been doing these macro outlook sessions, and they've been going on longer and longer. Lots more data to share, lots of questions come out of them. So as we kind of address them, everything just gets stretched out into more and more PowerPoint slides and more discussion. So I've been doing less updates on the macro, especially as some of the main points I've been wanting to make about supply, demand, etc., have kind of been hit, and I don't just want to keep repeating the same thing over and over. But I also think a lot of people are looking for updates on the main data, the air travel, the American supply, the inventory data, etc. And I just haven't had time to kind of do a small compressed macro session. But I think given the way I like to run things, I like to teach people how to fish as opposed to give them the fish, if you will. And I think I'll just share some macro data sources that are freely available. They're relatively easy to understand. There's a few things here which quite a bit more complex, and maybe for people who enjoy data analysis and just poking around on websites looking for data and trends and that kind of stuff. I'll just give you the source. These are all free sources. There are other sources I use that are paid. I'm not going to share those today. This is all just free stuff that any retail or generalist investor can use. You can track stuff, keep up to date if you're wondering about kind of what's going on. I'll share a little bit about how I understand the data, how I interpret the data, and then the rest I'll leave up to your imagination. This also doesn't cover all the free sources. This is only a part of it. There is very, very deep random data that ends up on my watch list, and I just start tracking, and I'll share a couple examples of what I mean by that. But if I was to share all of those, we would be here forever. So I'll try and stick to the main ones, and yeah, if there's any questions at the end, I'll leave it to that, and we'll kind of go from there. So basically, as you know, there's a few things I track. Before I start that, nothing here is investment advice. I'm not an investment advisor. Please do your own due diligence on what I say today. Check your own risk tolerance. Your portfolio construction is likely to be different than mine. So nothing here is advice. It's my opinion. It's how I look at things. For anyone who wants to get on the mailing list for future sessions, please email me, DM me, and I can get you on there. There was an issue here yesterday with sending it out, so I didn't send till this morning, but I hope to be a little more timely on those and kind of for future sessions there. And everything is recorded, so for anyone looking for previous sessions, they're on the website whitetundra.ca, archive seminars on the top. And again, I'll say this one more time, for anyone on Twitter that wants to join for the Zoom call, on the website homepage, whitetundra.ca, scroll to the bottom, near the bottom, and there's under the events section, the Zoom link. But yeah, we'll get started. For people that know me, you've come to my macro outlooks, there's three kind of main things I track that I think the oil market really depends on, is inventory, supply, and demand. If one has a good understanding of these things, you can really get an idea of what's going on in the market as to the supply demand scenario and how that affects inventory, how that affects production. The links that I'll talk about today has nothing to do with overall broad macro stuff. There's various other links for that. This will be focused on oil macro specifically. So basically the way it's structured, I've got just a list here. I've got them all linked, and I'll just open the websites as I go and talk about them. If there's any questions as I go, please put them in the chat on the Zoom, and I'll try and address them. But I know everyone's busy, so keep it short and get it going here. So the first thing I track for inventory is the EIA weekly report. I think anyone who is serious in tracking what's going on in worldwide oil supply demand, America has the most transparent inventory data out there. How accurate it is, not 100%, but it's the most transparent, and it's about the direction the data is going, as opposed to the actual number itself, which is important. And basically, these are released every Wednesday, 1 hour after market open. On federal holidays in the US, it's released on Thursdays, as it says right here. But usually it's Wednesdays, 1 hour after market open. And basically, the PDF that I'm using today, I will post it. So it will be on the website for anyone looking with the links attached. So don't fret that you need to copy these links or anything. I will post the PowerPoint later, but basically on the EIA website, on these weekly data, there's two things that I look at: your weekly petroleum status highlights. So this basically tells you the main stuff of what's going on every Wednesday. The report they release is for last week, Friday to Friday. So when the report is released on June, it would have been 15th, it's for the week ending June 10th, Friday to Friday. And the reason I say that is just because the impact of the weekend, sometimes a long weekend, is not reflected in the previous week's report sometimes, and people get a bit confused. But basically, it tells you the main things. It tells you what the crude oil inputs were, what they were compared to last week. So you kind of get a sense of the direction things are going. It tells you gasoline and distillate production. It tells you crude imports. It tells you gasoline and distillate imports, and it tells you crude oil inventories, gasoline, distillate, and propane inventories. And then it gives you the demand number for the week. So basically it covers a lot of the main things: the inventory, the supply, and the demand, all in one easy to read format. If you're looking to go a little bit more into it, I would go into the data overview PDF right here. So this one breaks it down into SPR, commercial, residual oils, other oils, total stocks, and then you also get your production number in here, which a lot of people are tracking or should be tracking. You've got your net imports, your production, your demand data broken down by exact product. So really you get a lot of data here, and just by looking at one report, I don't think you will really understand what's going on. It's about tracking them week after week after week. You kind of get an idea of where numbers kind of should be, where they usually end up. You will be able to track standard deviations from that data pretty easily as you kind of go along. It also breaks it down into storage by PAD, so petroleum district in the US, refineries by district, gasoline storage, et cetera, et cetera. Track all kinds of stuff on here. I don't usually go into this kind of stuff unless I'm looking for a specific data point, like, for example, how much gasoline was drawn in PAD 5. Let's say there's a shortage going on in PAD 5 and you're worried where the gasoline inventories are, you can go and get that number exactly. So very useful, very easy. It's free, it's updated every week. So it's one that I think a lot of people should get used to if you're going to be serious about tracking the macro stuff more closely. So the next one is just the EIA petroleum website in general. They've got a lot of stuff that people maybe don't realize. The EIA, as much as I bash them for some of their forecasting, actually has been tracking a lot of stuff for the past, however many years. So the main EIA.gov petroleum website in the US. So you've got, certain newsletters they put out with interesting data on, looks like they've got some stuff on refining margins here, international cash flow. They've got some stuff on the petroleum product movement, and they've got all sorts of pricing here, which is updated daily. So for anyone looking for actual gasoline data in different parts of the US, heating oil data, and the crack spread, which is becoming more and more important. It's right here, it's updated daily. So it's all here for you. You got the propane in Texas, you got the diesel pricing. You know, some people run demand destruction, elasticity calculations. You've got your own formulas going on. You can kind of update them in real time here as you go, along with the crack spread. It also tells you the upcoming releases. So, you know, here's the Wednesday report that we just discussed, but they have other reports that come out. They have the gasoline and diesel fuel update, propane update this week in petroleum. They've got all sorts of visualizations. So for those who attended the seminar yesterday, you know, I talked about the pipeline and refining infrastructure. So they actually have a mapping system where you can just go in there, and go in the US once it loads. Very data intensive, like it's very, very transparent data. And of course it doesn't load when I need it to load, but basically what this shows is it'll have all the pipelines. So as we see here, it'll have all the pipelines, all the power stations, the refineries, the water stations, all kinds of stuff. And not only that, when you click on something, it'll actually give you the nameplate capacity and what city it's in, what county it's in, what it actually does, how much power does it generate. So this I use more if there's any sort of incident. So when you hear, oh, X power plant blew up or there was a maintenance issue, you can go on here and it will tell you exactly how much power was lost, how much refining capacity was lost, which pipelines were affected, et cetera, et cetera. And again, not all the things I talk about today will be useful to everyone, but I just want to put them out there. People have different things they're interested in. You know, a lot of us who are in the oil trade, I think really enjoy data to begin with, and we can go into rabbit holes on certain things. So I'll just put it out there, and you know, you can use whatever you want. The other thing I want to talk about is the actual data portion of this. So when you go on the top tabs here, you go into data, and you know, let's say you're curious about imports of imports by area of entry. So you've been reading these weekly reports, the Wednesday reports, you've checked out the import numbers. Now you're curious, where does it come in? And you're curious about butane, normal butane. You can actually get a chart that's updated by the week, sometimes by the month, of exactly how these butane imports were. So, you know, we had this huge spike in butane imports, then it went down, and now we're up again. Whether this information is useful to you or not is going to depend on what you're looking for. If you're invested in a company in the US that basically just processes butane into some sort of petrochemical plastic, you might be interested in this. The data is there for you for a lot of things. You know, as much as the EIA, I don't think does a good job at forecasting, they do a really good job at aggregating data, visualizing data. They let you download just about their entire data set. So, you know, I haven't gone into the weeds here yet into these sorts of things, but I do track a lot of stuff here to do with net imports and where the imports are coming in, from which countries they're coming in, where the exports are going, these sorts of things. And they've got stuff for refining, production, pricing, inventory, sales, you know, all kinds of stuff here. So again, if you're interested, check that one out. As far as more inventory data, there's one, Fujairah, which is getting to be a bigger and bigger hub in the Middle East, in the UAE. They post their data every week for free. So fujairah.platts, and they give you the inventories here of light, middle, and heavy distillates. They also give you the bunker sales for the last month. So again, the raw data doesn't really mean much. It's something that if you're serious, again, about following these things religiously, you track them week after week, you can build your own graphs, you can build your own visualizations and kind of track these things as you go on. And for anyone wondering why I talk about Fujairah so much, it's because it's basically the fastest growing oil hub in the Middle East in terms of a port, especially for the middle distillates, the diesels and the jet fuels in general, some of the marine oils, which are obviously in tighter supply and also relate directly to Canadian heavy oil, depending on the heavy oil kind of inventory across the world, depending on how globalized you think the market is. So that's Fujairah. The other one I want to talk about is Vortexa. So Vortexa does really good job with tracking a lot of inventory data. And Vortexa is a paid service. It's in the tens of thousands of dollars a year, but they have these newsletters they put out for free. So Insight newsletter, the Asia Market Spotlight, the EMEA, which I think is Europe and Middle East and Asia, the Americas, and the Freight Weekly are free newsletters. And basically you just sign up, and I'll show you an example here of the latest one that I got. This is an America's flow highlights, and just absolutely amazing data that they're giving out for free. So they give you Asia and European imports of oil exported from the US. So if you're curious where the oil is going, by country, it looks at sour crude. It also looks at Cushing onshore inventories, something that I know a lot of people are looking to track. It looks at Western Canadian onshore crude inventories. This data is just about impossible to find without paying, again, tens of thousands of dollars. And Vortexa is putting it out there for you. So it tracks Edmonton, Hardisty, and Regina in real time, and they're giving you data. You know, it's not right up to the date, but you can see the trend. You can see what's going on in recent weeks and recent months. Absolutely phenomenal. I would suggest everyone sign up for the Vortexa newsletters. I look forward to them quite often, and they have really good data on the Russian situation in real time. And I know a lot of people who had emailed me looking for a latest macro session. We're looking for the Russian data and kind of what's going on in that part of the world. So if you're looking for that, please check this out. It shows Spain crude imports, Ecuador crude exports. So Ecuador is one that has been in the news cycle here because they just declared force majeure yesterday on one of their fields, I believe. So, you know, something to track. Colombia crude exports, something to track. They've got all sorts of stuff, onshore inventory, residual oil, you know, blah, blah, blah. So I cannot stress this enough. I don't know why these guys are giving with these newsletters out for free, but while they are, I'm going to take full advantage of it. And they've recently added some new functionalities to their platform, and I think they kind of want to show what they can do. So here it is, and you know, really good stuff here. Alex, go ahead. Let me see here. I might have to remove the restriction. Yeah, Alex, you raise your hand. Please go ahead. That's working. Okay, it's all good. So the other thing is, if you're looking for Canadian inventory, our own very generous Sad Bill Ackman on Twitter, I think us in the Canadian oil space know him, very generously posts Western Canadian inventories as well. It's not by any means every week or anything, but every so often, I always appreciate it when he posts this. And you can kind of compare this with the Vortexa data just to verify things. I believe this is from Genscape. So, you know, there's certain accounts on Twitter as well that do a really good job. They're very generous again with the information that they put out. So thank you, Bill, for that. Please follow him if you're looking for that and other insights into all kinds of stuff in the Canadian oil space. Cushing, Genscape. So again, if you're looking for better data on Cushing, which is where the WTI contract trades at, and if you think that's going to be an important factor kind of going forward. I can't reveal the account name, but I will say there's an account on Twitter that freely posts Cushing Genscape data. It's not hard to find. And the difference being that the API report and the EIA report give you the Cushing data as of Friday, but they're delayed, right? The report is Friday to Friday, and you don't get the report till the following Wednesday. But the Genscape data is real time. So they will do a measurement on Tuesday morning and release it by Tuesday afternoon. They will also do a measurement on Thursday morning and release it by like Friday morning or sometimes Thursday evening in real time. And the data is out there on Twitter. You just have to search for it. I'm going to leave it at that. The US inventory charts. So the reports we just talked about, if you want to see them in visual form, there's this account on Twitter, Ron H999, and basically just puts everything into graph format. So if you don't have your own way of bringing in data to Excel or Google and building your own charts, you don't want to do it. You can look at European natural gas storage in visual format. You can look at every time the EIA weekly is reported on Wednesday, Ron goes in, adds in the data, and you can see it in visual form. So again, some of the accounts on Twitter are really, really good as to what they do, and they provide really solid information and visuals, but a lot of people don't know about them, or they just get ignored in like this account only has, what is it? Well, not bad. It's got over 5,000 followers. So people are more and more following this, automated visualization. So on the inventory side, the other one, if we ignore the US, we want to look more worldwide. It's the Jody data. Again, a free database. They release reports every month, I believe, on production. And basically, let's just pick a country. Let's pick Saudi Arabia because it's one of the big players in the oil markets. And the data is delayed a lot, but it's actual confirmed data. And they tell you production, exports, internal consumption, the inventories at the end of the month. They also show you the refinery output and kind of what products the refineries made, all kinds of other stuff, demand and exports and all this. And they basically have every country that they track. So they don't track every country, but there's a lot of countries that they track, which are in blue here. So you want to look at Iraq, and you kind of get the same sort of data here. And this is something that is getting more and more important. Tracking, if you're a big believer in the oil bullish cycle, you have to track the OPEC spare capacity and what's OPEC producing, what do you think they can produce? And the third factor that I look at is what's the internal consumption? As oil economies grow, as they get more and more revenue, their GDP is going to rise at huge rates. The internal consumption is going to rise at huge rates. Secondly, petroleum in a lot of OPEC countries is subsidized, so people are not affected by the higher prices for oil as much. The demand is much more inelastic, and as the GDP increases, people get more money, they want to spend it more. Gasoline is cheap, diesel is cheap, these products are cheap. It's important to track internal consumption in these countries, at least from my perspective. Some of these countries, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, UAE, they could increase their oil consumption 5 to 10% in one, year over year. That makes a huge impact on the global oil demand that people are not really thinking about or factoring in. This data from Jody gives you access to that. The next one is the OPEC MOMR. So this is the monthly oil market report, published every month. Absolutely fantastic. Basically, they put it out in PDF form, and they have it's 100 and some, 92 pages of basically graphs, data, tables, and you can nerd out on this basically all day long. It shows you investment flows. It shows you, payrolls. It talks about unemployment rates. It talks about Europe, Asia, Middle East. What are their forecasts? What they expect the Permian to grow. Like, they've got excellent forecasting. Your interpretation of it is going to be different than mine, but the data is out there. And they put everything in chart form. They talk about refineries, products, all kinds of stuff. And I bet you not many people actually know about this report or have ever read it. And just great work that they do. I cannot stress this one enough. If you're looking to know what you don't know about the oil markets, there's stuff you never even heard of, or you never even thought about tracking, read this report. You will get so many ideas, and there'll be 50 rabbit holes you can deep dive into, looking for other stuff. And it talks about the future, it talks about the past, predictions, current, forecast. All I can say is read it. If you're interested in any sort of global understanding of the oil markets, this is probably one of the best reports out there every month, and it's free. It doesn't get better than that. And then just a couple of paid sources I want to talk about. I don't subscribe to these, but there is ways to get the information. People post them on Twitter or forums or whatnot. Keros does really good stuff on inventory tracking in real time, especially the oil on the water inventories. And then we have Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs that track really good stuff. If you're an investment client with them, the kind of PDFs and reports they put out, we can't take the data at face value. There's always some sort of bias to it. But if we understand the data, we can make our own interpretations of it. And we just need somebody to feed us the information. And as analysts, as even retail or generalist investors, it's about understanding the data and how we can use it to guide our investment decisions. Going forward, that's a little bit more important. So again, two sources. If you can find your way into these reports, the odd PDF gets out there every so often. Really good stuff. So that's inventory. There's a lot of other stuff that we covered between this. It's not just inventory, but you can get inventory data from these things. Now, production. Production is very linked to supply, not exactly, but there's a few things that I track. So the differentials on the crudes, I talked about this yesterday. You want to look at what crudes are trading for, and that gives you a rough idea of the production in that area. So, if we look at WTI versus Mars versus Louisiana Light versus the Bakken crude, you will see which ones are trading at a premium. If we take the impact of transportation out, if we take the impact of the quality difference out, the rest of the premium or discount is based on the supply demand in that localized area. So I'll give you an example of that. Basically, there's a website called tradingview.com, and you can see all kinds of WTI pricing on here. So I'm going to look at WTI. Okay, I'm going to go back 5 years. I'm going to look at, let's say, April 2019. Okay, so 22nd April 2019, WTI was at $63. Today it's at 108. Okay, so 63 on where am I here? 63 on 22nd April 2019. It's 108 today. Now let's look at our Clearwater Bakken or Clearbrook Bakken pricing. If we go back 5 years again, we go to April 22nd. Where am I here? So this was at 61. So Bakken crude was trading at $2 below WTI in April 2019. Today, it's $4 above WTI. That to me tells me that in the Bakken, we have excess takeaway capacity, and that supply is falling, and the demand for that crude is rising versus WTI. If you look into the Bakken production and the pipeline capacity and the supply there, you'll find this statement holds true, that the Bakken has not increased production as much as people thought. Therefore, the supply is lower and the premium that it trades at is higher. And now, this is kind of getting into the weeds a little bit. You would really have to know where these blends are traded. There might be other reasoning for the difference in discount and premium. But for the most part, when there's a trend that stays like this and it swaps, there's usually a loss of production that accounts for it. So again, just an example, I like sharing exact examples as to what's going on. Again, the Jody data for production, the OPEC MOMR for production, really, really solid. Yeah, check that out. So a little more Canadian focused, the ARC Energy charts. So ARC Financial also has an ARC Energy Institute. They put out charts every Monday/Tuesday, PDF format. It gives you a lot of information about pricing, indices, about the electricity price in Texas, in Alberta, the pricing, the heavy oil differential, the NGL pricing, which is one information that is very hard to find, NGL pricing in Edmonton. They give you that week over week, Alberta production. They go into the crude oil stuff, the natural gas pipeline flows. So anyone looking at natural gas, you're investing in Canadian natural gas equities, you need to be reading this ARC Energy weekly report. It gives you pipeline flows out of Western Canada, natural gas exports within the US space. It gives you Alberta natural gas demand in basically real time, production in real time, and storage levels in real time. 1 week delayed, obviously. And in the US, this sort of data is very, very difficult to find in a free source, especially updated weekly. So absolutely amazing work. Drilling activity, they talk about number of wells drilled. And I really like this one. The last slide shows how much money these companies are making. Like they literally show how much money these companies making as an aggregate Canadian industry. How much money is the whole oil patch going to make? They have predictions that change every week, I believe, based on the oil prices and the production and whatnot. So yeah, if anyone is doubting that Alberta is set up for a boom in its economy and tax generation, royalty generation, here's all the numbers for you right here. So again, free chart every week. The other one I look at for production is Norway Petroleum, Norway Petroleum D. I don't know what the D is, but Directorate. And basically, Norway does a really, really good job at putting out information and news as to the new drills, how they're performing, the random information about maps and reserves and technology coming in Norway, but they also release production figures. So it's about a month delayed, and they will give you the actual production for the month versus budget and versus last year. So they tell you exactly what they're projecting to produce for the entire year. Same with liquids, same with gas and condensates. There's not many countries that will do this. It's almost impossible to find what countries are budgeting for. But given that Norway relies so heavily on their oil and gas royalties, this is almost like their way of telling the public how much money they're going to make. And the data is there for you. It tells you exactly what they produced. Looks like they're missing their targets on oil and liquids. They're hitting the targets on gas. And look at this. This is maybe something not a lot of people know, is for June, Norway's oil production is forecasted to be down roughly 400,000 barrels a day. This could be maintenance related. This could be turnaround related, but it's a loss of supply in the market that's going on right now today. And I haven't heard anyone talk about it. I haven't heard Twitter, too much chatter on Twitter. I haven't heard it on any news cycle. It's obvious, it's there for you. That's a huge loss in a market that's so tight. To lose 400,000 barrels a day of oil supply, maybe even more, it looks like. Yeah, possibly even more than that, maybe like 600,000 barrels lost. No one's talking about it. If you know this, it gives you some sort of edge, right? How much that edge really matters, I don't know, but knowing data, knowing what's happening in the future, any planned refinery maintenance, any planned production maintenance, it all goes towards making your entire thesis on the sector. So yeah, great information here. I think the May report is scheduled to come out on Monday, this Monday or Tuesday. So I'll be watching for that. They also give it to you in presentation form and Excel form, so you can do whatever you want with it, play around with it, make your own graphs, etc. The next one I'll talk about is Oil Sands Magazine. So this is a Canadian-focused information here. They've got StatsCan updates on Canadian crude production, Canadian exports, Canadian diluent imports, trade balances, all sorts of other data on Canada. But what I like most about Oil Sands Magazine is actually here. They've got really good stuff to do with kind of the world energy statistics. So if you're looking, you just want to find out what the world oil supply demand was, what the stockpiles were, who are the biggest crude oil producers, et cetera, et cetera. You can find all this information on here in visual graph format, world oil reserves by country. You just want to understand the basics, it's all there. And the other thing they post that's really good is, for example, you're curious, the Canadian production, where does it come from? It gives you every company by project, what type of project it is in the Canadian oil sands, what the capacity is, and whether it's operating. So if you're an investor in CNRL, you're wondering what their mines are, what their SAGD projects are, how much do they produce, what are new projects that can come online. We see one here that's pre-FID. These are all operating. We see idle projects on here. Which projects are coming online in 2021, 2022. It gives you everything. And this is more company specific. It's going to depend on exactly which company you want to look at, but this data is all there for you, and it's put in easy to read, user-friendly format, and a lot of people just are not using these sources at their disposal. We also have Canadian refineries, so it lists all the refineries by capacity. The US refineries, I know people are focusing more on crack spreads, kind of what's going on. It gives you every US refinery by capacity, where they are, which state they're in, the coker capacity, I think this is distillation unit capacity, all kinds of stuff. So, if you hear in the news that XYZ refinery had an unknown issue and it had to go down for a month, you can go on here and check exactly how many barrels were lost. And then you can do more research into, is it heavy, is it light, what exactly do they use, where does the oil come from, feedstock and all this. Again, the data is there for you. Not every source I talk about today will be useful to everyone, but I just want to point them out. That way, when you are looking for a certain data point, you're not digging through 100 pages of Google to try and find something when it's there for you already. Perfect. So, and again, if there's any questions, please on the Zoom, put them on the chat, and we can kind of answer them as we go. The next one that I'll talk about is the Texas RRC production. So the Railroad Commission in Texas is the same as the AER in Alberta, the Alberta Energy Regulator. They have, just like the EIA tracks production data, each state regulator tracks their own data. So there's drilling permits, there's oil and gas production, operator cleanup. So let's just look at drilling permits, for example. This is a Power BI that they've made, and it's basically real time. You can tell which companies are getting drilling permits in which counties, how many are they getting, is it gas, is it oil? All this data is here for you. So when somebody goes and tells me, oh, the shale guys are going to go crazy, they're going to go drill, baby, drill. What do they need before they drill? They need permits. If we can track permits a month in advance of the drilling or 6 months in advance of the drilling, we will see a trend in the permits before we will see a trend in the rigs. It's that easy. It's that simple. I track this almost on a weekly, bi-weekly basis. I'll just go back and see who's pulling permits. Is it private companies? Is it public companies? And then I'll go to other websites. I'll see exactly where the permits are for, which county, and then look at their well results in that area. And kind of, again, I'm not saying everyone needs to get this deep into the data and do this much analysis, but we will be able to tell from this sort of data when the drill baby drill mentality is back. And the data is here for you, fully free, fully accessible. We have production data. We have production by county and kind of the rankings of the counties, all kinds of stuff here. The RRC does a really good job actually at sharing data and allowing it to be out there so people can look at what's going on. They also tell you how many wells were spudded. So spuds, permits, production, all very, very important information to be used. The same thing exists for the Bakken and New Mexico, I believe, but North Dakota in the Bakken, you can get oil production history all the way from 1953. You can get production totals by county, so which counties are growing production. You can go back and correlate that to which counties have better acreage. What is the growth potential? You can run your own modeling. They have publications they put out in PDF form. So these are reports by the, I don't know what the name is, but the leader of the commission. And they talk about different productions and they list every single well that came online. So you can see how the new drills are doing. I believe this is by company. Yeah, by company, you can tell how they're doing. All kinds of data. You can spend 100 years on this, going crazy, trying to understand exactly what you're looking for. It tells you the number of drilling rigs active, historical drilling data, how many meters were drilled, blah, 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 all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I guess the suggestion I can say is that I can't cover everything that I'm tracking in this short presentation, but if you're interested in a certain thing, just go to the website and play around, click all the links, figure out what's going on, and maybe you find something in there that's really important to your company or to your thesis. The next one I'll talk about is the Dallas Fed survey. So this is a survey conducted every quarter of about 200 oil and gas firms in Texas, Louisiana, New Mexico, etc. And I think the second quarter report comes out this week, actually. But I'll go to the first quarter report, and basically they have price forecasts as to what the companies are responding. They have special questions on, where is your company active? What WTI price does your company need? What is this? Yeah, they have all kinds of questions here that you can use to kind of gauge how are these companies thinking about things right now. When we listen to conference calls, sometimes they're not really clear as to what they're doing. They want to hide things. And even in this report, they can hide things, but you kind of get an aggregate understanding of what are the companies doing, what are they projecting into the future, how are the labor statistics looking, the drilling, all kinds of stuff. This is an amazing PDF. It tells you the business indicators, the for each part of the industry, all kinds of stuff. And again, if you're interested more in these sorts of companies and what they think, go to the website and just play around. They've got manufacturing surveys, they've got other surveys. I mostly focus on the energy survey because it's all that I really care about. But it's there. And I think the new one, I want to say, comes out this week. If I'm not wrong here. Yeah, June 23rd. So a great exercise, if you want to wait till June 23rd and wait for the new release and then see what it says. You'll see people discussing it on Twitter a lot, making threads about it. So it's a pretty well-tracked survey. The other one I'll talk about is Shale Profile. For those who have attended my macro, I use a lot of data from Shale Profile, a lot of visualizations. And basically, he's got a blog. Eno, very, very smart individual, absolutely amazing data. Him and his team have done a really good job. And you go to the blog here on top, and basically you can look at Permian production by total production. You can go by county. So if you just want to look at Eddy in New Mexico, you pick that, and there you go. There's your data. You can go by well quality. You can go by well status. You can go into the top operators. They have maps, all kinds of stuff here. And then in the blog, if you go back, they have Eagle Ford, North Dakota, Bakken, US, whatever. And the free data source is actually really good in the blog. And I would also recommend for anyone that's really serious to get the paid subscription, because you can just go so much deeper and look at a specific company, the kind of laterals they're drilling, how many permits do they have, how much land holdings do they have, what are their wells in comparison to other operators in the area, and all that. And there's not going to be many people on the call who actually need that sort of deep understanding. So for most of the people, this free information is going to work really well. You can go basically into, you want to go into well quality, and you want to look at a certain company. Let's say you want to look at, Centennial, for example, in the Permian. I don't even know if they're in the Permian, but you can kind of track wells by year, how they perform as the years go on, 2021, 2020. I'll leave it at that. There's a lot of information here, freely available. Shaleprofile.com, under the blog section right here. And I think you can still get a demo if you want for 2 weeks or something. So, if you don't know what kind of data you're looking for on shale, you can do that as well. So that's that on production. I kind of want to try and wrap this up here. I don't want to spend too long on this today. On the supply side, we have Enverus rig count updated daily. So you can get the daily rig count every day, by year and by play. So if you're somebody who tracks Baker Hughes weekly rig counts, you can actually track them daily. You can track day by day how the rigs are going. You don't need to wait for the weekly reports. Let's say you just want the Permian and you want to look at the last 1 year. It'll tell you exactly what's happening. And when I talk about Permian rig count, flatlining and whatnot, it's pretty obvious in the data what's happening here, compared to something like the Eagle Ford, which is actually still rising. So very simple to make pretty deep insight into these sorts of things. People will say, well, the Permian's the big growth driver. I can easily pull up data that shows the Permian rig count has flatlined. In the last 4 months, the Permian rig count has flatlined. Easy. So this is something that I check daily. I wake up and, sometime in the day, usually in the morning, I'll check the rig count, just see what's going on. Usually day by day, it doesn't really matter, to be honest. The reason more that I track it day by day is so I can kind of get things, a really good understanding of where the rigs are, so that when I see a number thrown out by somebody, I can immediately know if it's wrong, it's correct, if there's a big change that's happened, and kind of what's going on. And the same thing in table format here. And related to rig counts, we have frac fleets. So for anyone looking to track frac fleets, AOGR, American Oil and Gas Reporter, it gives you frac fleets going all the way back to 2015 by the week, according to data by Primary Vision. Simple as that. I don't need to really talk about that much more. Every week, it gives you year over year and gives you week over week. So remember, it's not drilling rigs that bring oil online, it's frac fleets. So if you want to be tracking frac fleets, here you go, week over week, completely free. The EIA DPR, Drilling Productivity Report. I don't like this very much because it's not the best data. It's a lot of forecasting. People know how I feel about the EIA's forecasting, but it still gives you production, you know, what they think is happening, the drilled uncompleted wells count. You can download the Excel files. It gives you the new well production per rig by region. Again, some of this data is not as straightforward as it looks, but again, you know, the more you look at this sort of stuff, the more you get familiar with it, the more you add your own spice to it, your own understanding, the more you can kind of you know, do what you want with it. The data is there for you. It's not supposed to spell it out. It's supposed to give you the numbers, and then you apply your own understanding to it. Some is more simpler than others. The EIA 914, this is basically the granddaddy of US production. It's the real approved numbers. It is delayed, so we only have data for March right now, but it's actual production. You know, the weekly reports are not fully accurate because the data collection is not 100%. The 914 is more, how should I say this, more vetted. There's more time that's been given for the data to come in, all the errors to be put out, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So pretty simple. There's nothing to this. It's basically production that's more accurate, and it's more delayed. The other thing I track in terms of supply, people who have attended my macro sessions, you know, I think the seismic activity around Texas is going to become a bigger and bigger issue. I track earthquakes in Texas. So here is the earthquakes in table form. Here they are in visual form. What am I looking for? I'm looking for earthquakes over a 4 magnitude, and I'm looking for earthquakes in the Midland, Odessa area, the big population centers. And again, I don't wish that there's earthquakes to happen and people die. No, I'm just tracking seismic activity. If there's seismic activity near where people live, people tend to get angry, and it affects oil production, in this case, pretty materially. If you don't think so, go back and read about Oklahoma's issue with earthquakes and how it affected their oil production in the area. They had like a 5.7 or 5.8 magnitude hit, and people were just panicked. The whole industry was affected. This is my niche. I like to track it. I'm not saying it's useful for you or that anything's ever going to happen, but it's there. So that's that on supply. On travel now. Travel is a big thing. The travel numbers, are people traveling? You know, demand destruction, recession fears, emerging market fears, what's going on. The travel numbers give you a really good perspective on what's going on. The travel numbers are real time. The travel numbers are very transparent. The overall strength of an economy, I think, relies heavily on how many people can afford to go out and travel and spend money on what you would call discretionary stuff. So I think travel numbers give a really good indication of how economies are doing. And I'll kind of give an example of that here as I go. But the first thing I look at is TSA numbers. So the Transportation Security Administration in the US, they post numbers daily. How many people were checkpointed by the TSA every day? Literally, that's a data source. So what do I look at? I compare the same day, or not the same day, I compare like a 7-day moving average to 2019 7-day moving average. I also compare week over week. So I'll take the 18th of June, yesterday, was 2.17 million. Exactly 1 week ago was 2.08 million, 2.09. We have a roughly 4% growth week over week. If we check the day before that, we have 2.44 million versus 2.36 million. About a 3% growth week over week. Just compare data week over week, and you will get a really good understanding. Are more people traveling? Are less people traveling? The exact number is not important. It's the direction, the trend that we're seeing, and the comparison to pre-COVID levels. So updates every day. This is one of the things that I check every single day pretty religiously, and just compare it to 1 week ago. And I'll compare it, like if it's a Thursday or a Friday, I'll go back to 2019, I'll find the Thursday or the Friday, and I'll compare it to that number. The reason you want to do that is because travel is very different day by day. You see more travel on certain days of the week versus other days. So you don't just want to compare exact day to exact day. You want to compare the Friday to the Friday and the Monday to the Monday, etc. The other thing is ex ante data. This is another Twitter profile that does really, really good work. And there's 3 graphs that I look at. This one right here, workplace patronage, 7-day moving average. So you open it up. It tells you Japan, Euro, UK, US, and global GDP weighted. What is our workplace patronage compared to pre-COVID? And it tracks it. You can see how the trend is going up. We actually went above pre-COVID levels for a certain time here. The other one I track is retail and recreation patronage. So you see we're already 4% above pre-COVID highs. This is pretty interesting. We see a big rebound in the UK and European travel, along with the work stuff. We see the UK has really rebounded from some sort of loss here. It could have been a national holiday or something happening. The US is kind of flatlining / down. People are less going into work as summer travel kind of is going on. They're remote working more, possibly. And then the third thing I track with ex ante is this one here, which is how many cities are down 20, 40, or 60% in traffic congestion. You know, when COVID first hit, almost every city was down. And you can kind of see the COVID waves play out and make your own assumptions and interpretations of things as they go on here. So they've got other stuff on COVID and whatnot. I don't really care about all this stuff, so I leave it up to you. But they do release other stuff too, other data and whatnot. Not my cup of tea, so I'm just gonna leave it. Flights, a little bit more on flights. We have Flight Radar 24. It tracks number of flights, commercial flights every day. They also track number of total flights, so commercial, cargo, military, private jets, every day. I check this almost every day, this data. Look at the trend, what's going on, use it to my advantage. Gas Buddy. Well, before I go to Gas Buddy, I'm going to go to Airportia. So if you want to look at flights more in detail, you want to see which countries, what's going on. You know, Australia, Canada, You want to look at China, what's going on in China, which is a big question that people ask all the time. What's going on in China? Are people really locked down? Yeah, people really were locked down. The number of flights fell substantially. The recent news in the last week about Shanghai shutting down again, Beijing shutting down, it hasn't affected the flights. So to me, what that tells me is either people don't care, or the rules have loosened, or people are traveling anyway. Or the shutdowns are in a very small population. They affect a very small amount of people. The flights data, I think, is way more important than people think. I think flights correlate directly to the COVID restrictions and the strength of the economy in that country. Again, this is just my view, but going with that, we can see, for example, let's pick Spain, for example. Spanish travel is back to 2019 levels. 15% of Spain's GDP is travel and tourism. You can make your own interpretation of what that means. Compared to 2021, our flights are up like more than 2x. How does that relate to GDP? If 15% of the GDP is travel and tourism, I don't have an answer exactly for you, but you see where I'm going with this. If you compare it to a company like Indonesia, big travel hub, flights have not rebounded. Flights are flat. Is there a problem here? What's going on? Is Indonesian economy really rebounded? Are they actually done with COVID? Flights are only up 20% from 2021. That to me tells me they're still struggling with COVID restrictions, with people not willing to travel, with Americans and other tourists not going to Indonesia. It's right there, it's obvious, it's in front of your eyes. Do not ignore this sort of data and what it means. And again, everyone's going to have their own interpretation, and it's going to take time. You're not going to become an expert on data analysis on day one. It's about tracking these things every week, every month, every year. You might be wrong on some predictions, you might be correct on some predictions. You adjust your model. And again, I'm not trying to convert everyone into an energy analyst and you should be out there tracking all this stuff and geeking out. No, it's about, if there's a certain thing you want to track, I want to show you where to get the data. If it's important enough to you, you'll begin following it and using it to guide your investment thesis. Radar box, this one I really like because it takes Airportia and it puts it on steroids. Because what it does, it gives you flights, like specific flight patterns. So I just talked about China and recession. So let's look at China. These are Chinese domestic flights. You see how we have a huge rebound in Chinese domestic flights? Okay, very interesting. When we look at China flights to non-China, like international flights, there's not as drastic of a rebound. Okay, and there never has been. Look, since COVID started, Chinese international flights never really rebounded. So when you tell me that jet fuel is tight and travel demand is going to pick up over the next 6 months, how much demand is really going to pick up? Well, if I look at the data and it's the international flights that are missing from the data that haven't come back, what does that tell me? That tells me every incremental flight being added is likely to be a big jet fuel consuming international flight, because we haven't seen the rebound yet in the big long haul intercontinental flights. So when I look at the Airportia data, I look at the number of flights that are increasing per day. I have a different interpretation on that. I think every flight being added is a long haul flight with huge jet fuel consumption. What you make of the data, how it affects your investment thesis, it's going to be subjective. It also tracks by airport. So if you're wondering, is JFK busy in New York? Here you go. If you're wondering about Barcelona, here you go. You're thinking about Sydney. Here you go. So you can really dive deep into the airline data is actually really, really good. You can track a lot of stuff in real time. We see Vegas is above 2019 levels. Maybe Atlanta isn't. Atlanta is still below. So the data is there. What interests you, what you choose to use is up to you. Radar box, very, very good stuff here. Gas Buddy. So a lot of people on the call here, Patrick, Gas Buddy, he posts really good data on gasoline demand in the US. So, right here, gasoline demand rose 6.3%. One thing to keep in mind, his data is Sunday to Saturday, whereas the EIA data is Friday to Friday, or Saturday to Friday, if you will. So there's a 1-day difference. Not that it means that much, but keep in mind what's being reported and what week they're using when they report their information. The next thing, Rystad has, again, I don't agree with their forecasting, but they have these press releases they put out, which are just, newsletter-esque graphs, information, what they think is happening. Rystad has probably one of the best data out there in terms of US production, world production, EVs, solar, and to get some of their thoughts and to get some of their commentary and charts, it's there for you. You might as well use them. And if you think they're wrong, you make your own adjustment to them and kind of continue on. Google mobility data. This is something that started after COVID came online. So Google tracks people's phones, I think. Shocker. And they have, let's say you're interested in Cambodia and you want to look at how many people are going to retail, how many people are going to parks, how many people are searching Google Maps for transit stations, workplaces. In each country, it gives you the information in real time. So what is it telling me? It's telling me people are shopping, people are going to grocery. A lot of people are going to parks and beaches and gardens, 38% more than pre-COVID. Transit is down 27%. So why is that important? Because if people aren't using transit, they bought vehicles, they bought motorcycles, they're biking, they're walking. What does that do to petroleum demand? You can run your own forecasting models on it. If you pick a high enough population country and public transit is down 40%, that to me tells me the oil demand for gasoline is going to be higher than pre-COVID by X amount of percentage. I'm not going to make the model for you, but you can make a model and adjust it as you go along. Very important for countries that are growing, emerging markets, and kind of how things change. If you think the impact of higher oil pricing and higher dollar on a certain country is super high and people can't afford gasoline, but then you find out that people are driving around a lot and they're using less transit, there's your thesis busted right there. If the price of gasoline was really affecting people, you would see the transit station usage start going up and creeping back up. This is just a random country I picked, but we see no change so far. So there goes that model. In 15 seconds, we debunked that theory in one certain country. So there's a question here on oilprice.com. Yeah, I don't use oilprice.com. I don't like the articles they put out. It's a lot of very lazy analysis. My opinion, I'm not saying people do bad work. I'm just saying the analysis is not useful to me because I have other data sources that I can use to come up with the same analysis without needing somebody to spell it out for me and possibly missing certain information. and not saying I'm a genius or I know everything about oil. I still read the headlines. I still will open articles and go through them. I just think some of them miss certain data points or certain context that is quite important in understanding what the article is trying to say. And yeah, Lorenz, the slides will be available. Yeah, I'm going to post these to the website, whitetundra.ca, with all the links, so you can kind of play with them, check them out, etc. Yeah, thank you. So now I want to talk about one website which I use out of maybe 50 or 60 more that I haven't mentioned today. RVIA. It's the RV Industry Association. They tell you monthly shipments of RVs, what kind of RVs are shipped. They compare it to, previous years. They compare it to year over year to date, shipments and all this, and you might think, well, what is this useful for? Well, I think that if RV sales drop off, which are your travel trailers, your fifth wheels, etc., it's a sign of a recession. People stop buying toys and boats and ATVs when there's a recession coming up or when they're tight on money. As of the end of April, there's no data showing any drop in RV sales. If we go back to kind of the main thing of what's going on here, I don't know if it's going to be here somewhere. So basically, 2021 was the highest RV sales ever. It beat the previous record by 20%, 19%. And 2022, we're selling more RVs than 2021. To me, looking at this one data point, the US consumer is in very, very good shape. Can I extrapolate to the entire economy based on this? No. But this is one data point that I use amongst 40, 50, 100 other points to tell me more deeply as to what's going on. And again, it doesn't make sense for me to share all of them because nobody's going to look into all of them. But you can find certain indicators that the general public does not use. But I think if you take 40 or 50 of them, you look at the aggregate of what's going on, you can make a very good case one way or another as to how the economy is doing. And it's very easy to go on Twitter and make a post, recession and demand destruction and oil is dead. Anyone can go and do that. It's about finding the data that supports things like that or goes against things like that. And this is just one of a series of random things that I track. If anyone wants to talk about more of these, I'm happy to discuss, one-on-one or on Twitter Spaces, whatever. But there are various things that I track that I maybe may not talk about in the macro outlook or I don't mention, but they're going on behind the scenes, and there's many more like this out there. So last slide, and then we'll finish up here. Yeah, great question there, and I will talk about this. So analysis and research. So news websites, forums that I look at, G&G, people know Goring and Rosenschwag, exceptional, absolutely exceptional research. If you want to know about commodities and natural gas in particular, read these. They're available freely. Check them out. Nothing much more I can say on that. Fantastic, absolutely incredible research and commentary. Peakoilbarrel.com. This is a kind of a forum I use. So they go through and make graphs for you as to what's going on. So OPEC production, graphs, Venezuelan production, all kinds of countries, what's going on. And then frequently I find the commentary on the comments actually is really good. Don't take everything at surface value. Read it, try and understand what people are trying to say. And you'll find a lot of interesting graphs, and people have their own opinions. You can kind of understand how people are thinking about this. Really good website, really good forums. The other one I would suggest is Oily Stuff blog. Mike Shellman. This is a guy that's basically run and operated oil wells for his entire life, ever since I think he was a young kid. And there's all kinds of interesting insights from somebody who actually works in the industry, and stuff about the Permian and shale and fracking boom. There is posts about just stories about the oil field and oil patch. He has a forum that's got really good insight into Russia and chart analysis and all this. So it may not be your cup of tea. I really enjoyed being somebody who's worked in the industry. I like hearing a perspective from a engineering / operational perspective, because we're just bombarded with financial people telling us about the oil industry. I like hearing about more of the engineering operation side of things, and their understanding of what's going on. So oilystuffblog.com. S&P Global, solid. You can sign up for free and get access to a lot of information on coal, supply chains, mining, oil right here. So Russia's crude exports, you can read up about what's going on. Really, really good stuff. S&P Global, really solid articles. They have different stuff with EV battery demand and stuff that may not exactly be oil related, but it's a proxy to oil. Africa will see boom in graphite mining demand. So whatever you want to make of that, how many EVs can come online, how much oil do we need to mine this graphite for the EV batteries? We can talk about these things all day long. Here is the actual understanding of it. MEES, so Middle East oil, I think it's Middle East oil analysis. So information that is very, very difficult to find. The Middle East especially, it's so hard to find data that's reliable and accurate. MEES does a really good job. They send out newsletters. They have a paid version, but they also have the free version. And Qatar LNG, Egypt oil output. They have Iran nuclear talks. They have Libya oil blockades. Iraq oil to Europe, right? All these headlines are probably stuff that it would be very important for you as an oil investor if you're interested in doing deep macro research. These are pretty top of the mind topics, and no one has data on them like MEES does. The Iraqi stuff, the Iran, Saudi, UAE, Algeria, Egypt, this is the website you want to be using. I don't even know how much their paid version is, but the free version actually gives you a lot of charts and data that you can use. And the nice thing about MEES is it tells you what's coming up. It tells you which fields are going to be FID'd, which fields are coming online in which year. You kind of get an idea of where things are going in terms of OPEC supply and demand, exports, all that. Very good. Very, very, very good. A lot of my thesis that other people had on OPEC spare capacity, OPEC running out of barrels, people gave me all this data. I verified a lot of it with actually graphs from MEES, because they were able to give me really good understanding of OPEC and the Middle East. So I'll leave it at that. We have Iraq oil report, focused on Iraq specifically. Why do I focus on Iraq? Because Iraq is one country that can increase their heavy oil production, a competitor to Canadian barrels, at a pretty good rate. Like Iraq can, if money was put into it, increase heavy oil production by 2 million barrels a day in 3 to 5 years, let's call it. If money was put into it, if people trusted the geopolitical climate, in a best case scenario, it could happen. and I want to keep an eye on it. Any large source of potential supply, I want deeper information on it right here, IraqOilReport.com. It gives you the latest on what's going on, the Kurdistan oil issue, the royalty issue, all this, it's all there. J Camp Energy, so you've probably seen these charts on Twitter. Some of them are really, really solid, and you can actually sign up for the newsletter and get these in your email every single day. The latest John Kemp charts and commentary. It gives you a quick what's important. You know, John does the work up front and tells you, you know, what should you focus on? What should you be looking at right now? And every day I get a little update. If it's something I already knew, I just ignore it. I just look at the charts. If it's something that's new, I go and look into it further. You know, simple as that. So it says Lundin Group has started an oil company in the Kurdish area of Iraq. Yeah, so I think that's Shamaran Petroleum. Obviously, you've seen the track record of the Lundin Group. I myself don't feel comfortable investing in Iraq to begin with, let alone the Kurdish area, which is a area with lots of heavy fighting, lots of issues with risk, and people shutting in pipelines and blowing up wells. Not my cup of tea, but hey, maybe that's where opportunity lies. I did look at Shamaran quite a while back, but not my cup of tea. So a few more here, and then we'll end it. So we have the BP Global Energy Outlook, very in-depth. They have all sorts of predictions and forecast and data on where they think things are going. You know, a lot of it has to do with climate change and whatnot, which, I mean, you may or may not find that interesting. A lot of it is predictions. However, it's good to know what the big money is thinking. A lot of funds, a lot of hedge funds, institutions, banks, they read the BP Energy Outlook. You want to think how they think? Maybe not. You want to know how they think. Okay? Your thinking does not have to match theirs, but you need to know what is the thought process of the big money, because it can affect funds flow, it can affect investment, it can affect capital allocation, it can affect ESG metrics, what people are thinking. You know, again, it's not important to think how they think, it's important to know how money thinks. So the BP Energy Outlook spells it out for you. Three more. So we have the IEA, the International, what is it? Yeah, I don't even know what the acronym is, but the energy, they put out really good energy data and statistics. Some of it is paid, but you can find all kinds of numbers on oil and gas and coal, you know, oil production, fuels, technologies. You want to talk about aviation, let's say, you can go in here and talk about aviation emissions and fuel efficiency. You know, like this, for example, not a lot of people know that aviation fuel efficiency went doubled in 20 years. You know, I didn't know that either. I'm just seeing this for the first time. And, you know, all kinds of graphs and things here that I'm tracking. IEA, you can spend years on this website reading stuff, looking at data, policy analysis. Look at how many drop-down menus there are. So that already tells you this is a very good data source here. You can spend all day there. The next one, Oil and Gas Journal. So what's going on here? One second here, the Twitter kind of messed up. Yeah, so the Oil and Gas Journal, basically, it tracks all the deals, latest contracts, offshore drilling, spudding exploration wells, I like to keep an eye out on where exploration is going on and how much exploration is going on. Why? Number one, it tells me where are people allocating capital and what is the chances of them hitting a really, really good field, right? The biggest issue to our oil bull thesis is, supply, supply, demand, all kinds of stuff. But supply is what killed the oil bull thesis in 2014 was a huge source of supply came online and messed up the supply demand dynamic. I like to keep an eye out. Where are people drilling? Where are people spending money to explore? What kind of deals are they making? Right here. What are the politicians saying? Total Energies adds drill ship, blah, blah, blah. Who's working where? Crude inventories, all kinds of stuff here. You can read this all day long, again, all day long. There's infinite amounts of news and data here to read through. And the last one, to bring it back to Canada, the BOE report. Josh, I think it's Josh, the guy that runs this. Absolutely amazing work. It aggregates everything going on with Canada, Canadian news, US news. We have commodities, we have jobs, for anyone curious about that. We have 3 things here that are really, really cool. One, the well licenses. You can track the well licenses and which company is pulling permits, well licenses, and where, exactly where. So what does that tell you? It tells you where the drilling rigs are going. It tells you what sort of wells to expect. Where are they drilling? If I'm looking at Hammerhead, if I'm looking at Spartan Delta, I'll take this location, I'll put it in my PetroNinja, and I'll look at wells in the area. I'll look at infrastructure in the area, and I can guess what sort of well this is going to be. I can look at companies that are accelerating their pace of development. I can look at companies, are they checking out new areas? Are they drilling somewhere they haven't drilled in 5, 10, 15 years, right? Gives you lots of information here. The second thing is the well activity map. So, let's ignore licenses. I want to know where people actually are drilling. This is the last 3 months. Let's pick the last month. And, this is where people are drilling. The Montney, Duvernay, Clearwater, Southeast Saskatchewan you see is busy. This is like the Lloydminster trend, the Manville, Cardium. You can go right into it and click one. It tells you this is Tourmaline drilling right here using, vertical, using this rig. This is Synovus. Oh, it doesn't give me the rigs here. So, vertical. If we go in the Montney, you can see exactly where people are drilling, what they're doing, what's going on. So, and it links directly to PetroNinja. For people who have PetroNinja subscriptions, you can just click this and link directly to this well on the platform. The third thing's AER transfers. So, you're looking at under the cover M&A happening, small deals, bolt-on transactions right here. So look at this. 2 days ago, Pine Cliff just bought 157 wells and 14 pipelines from Axiom Oil and Gas. Does it mean anything? We don't know. You're gonna have to track these over time. Gear Energy, look at this, June 1st, they made this transaction. They bought 450 wells, 84 facilities and pipelines. If you want to know exactly where they are, right here, it tells you the LSDs of them. So, this is more company specific, but you can get all kinds of information that the market is not putting out there. It's not going to spoon feed it to you. You got to go and get it and interpret it. And maybe it helps your investment decisions. Maybe it's just random knowledge that you may or may not find interesting. I don't know. It's all subjective. Corporate presentations as well. company, go and read 40 corporate presentations. Go and pick, on my website, I have the latest corporate presentations of 55, 60 companies. Click them and read them. Sometimes they have interesting charts in there. They have land positions, they have forecasts, they have supply, demand, inventory data. There's stuff in there that these companies have found interesting enough to share with you in the presentation. That tells me it's something important and I should be focused on it and potentially even track it. And the last thing, Google. If you're interested in something, just go to Google and search it. You will find sources and things that, are not obvious, maybe sources you've never heard of. So I would go, for example, just search up like US oil production, for example, and then what I would do is go to images and I would search for the last month and, just see if any of these charts are important to you. If they are, go to it, go to the website, and maybe it's a new source of data that you never had before. Look at this. This is mysanantonio.com talking about US liquids fuel supply, and it doesn't have to be a broad topic like US oil production. Search for something you really want to know about, like Colombia shale exploration or Guyana flaring information, whatever you want. You'll find graphs. Go to the last month, go to the last week, find the latest stuff. Who's putting out information today? Sand trap and all this, whatever. It's all there for you. That's that. So this will probably keep you busy for a year or two or three. So I'll stop there. Again, any questions, please feel free to reach out. Any interesting sources you find, I'm very happy to hear about them and learn more. This is just a part of the sources I look at. This is not all of them, but these are kind of the main ones, the main free ones that give you the top-down level view. Some are more in depth than others. And yeah, so I'll just answer some questions here and then I'll maybe leave it be and let it kind of settle down in whatever you want to see. I will post this on the website here in a couple of hours. It'll be uploaded, and with the links, obviously the hyperlinks. So yeah, what does it say here? So it says that the Kurdish area is more secure than Iraq, but they're not on good terms with Baghdad, which is, I assume, where the Iraqi government is. So yeah, good information. Thank you. And do you know where the public can get access to Scotia and RBC? There's no free way to get access to these things unless you're a client and they invest your money for you. In a lot of cases, you can't get this sort of information. There is ways you can get the links. Sometimes the link gets posted somewhere, and I don't know if I should say this, but if you find a link sometimes from Scotia Capital or RBC Capital Markets, once you have one link, some of the platforms are so messed up, you can actually go in there and click other links while you're in there, and it will let you access pretty much the entire capital markets platform, even though you're not a subscriber. All you need is one link, and hopefully by me saying this, they don't fix this loophole, but I'll put it out there. There is ways you can get this sort of information, not very often, but the odd link does make it out on Twitter, or somebody accidentally posts it to some forum or something. So yeah. Great presentation. Yeah, thank you for sure. In licenses from being the seller and to being the buyer. Oh yeah, good point. So on the BOE report, I should just make this clear if I screwed this up, but basically on the the AER transfers, where am I here? Yeah, so it's from and to. So what I just said, it's actually the complete opposite. So Pine Cliff actually sold these wells, and Gear Energy actually sold those wells. My mistake on that. So please, for anyone that was listening here, it's the other way around. Thanks, Lucian, for bringing that up. Yeah, thank you, Cole. Appreciate it. And I guess I'll end with Jerry's question here. Added any stocks? Yeah, the only stock I've added here recently was Crew Energy. I added earlier this week or last week, and I added some Grand Tierra calls actually. The Grand Tierra option call options for I believe August and December maybe, but I'll update the portfolio here in the next couple of days to reflect that. And yeah, nothing else right now. Yeah, and yeah, thank you, boss. Yeah, the helping us all to fish. Yes, correct. PPR has not got any money from the Quebec government. No, I don't know where the lawsuit is. I know last time they were pretty heavily involved in the court case, so I will follow up on that and kind of go from there. Is there a source that forecasts MyDale or LSP differentials? So the website you want to use is tradingview.com. So if you go on TradingView, this is Western Canadian Select differentials. This is Canadian Condensate. This is Clearbrook Bakken. So AFF, I don't know what that is, so I'm just going to search it up. So we have AFF. So that's your Midland Argus differential. So basically what you do is you take WTI and you add the differential and it'll chart it for you. And I'm pretty sure it has Louisiana, MyDale, and all this. Yeah, I'd have to look for it, but basically, no, it may not have some of the really deep hubs, but it's got a lot of the main ones anyway. So here, Robert says SCI hub is a great resource. So if you see something good on SPE or One Petro, you can smash it in the link and you can get the PDF on it. So anyone on the Zoom call, you can save this link here, Sci Hub. Yeah. Yeah, thanks again. I kind of want to leave the questions here on the specific company, their Bains, but yeah, still extremely bullish on Vermilion. Nothing has changed in my opinion. People don't like transactions because they don't understand transactions. They, it's very easy to look at an M&A activity and just go, oh, this sucks. I hate this. I don't want to see this. It's a different thing entirely to understand what they bought, what price they paid, what it means for the future, what kind of acreage they got. And what you'll find is very few people actually put in the work. So yeah, I'm still very bullish on Vermilion, especially with the Russian news coming out about them blocking flow or losing flow to a lot of European storage hubs. Yeah, so yeah, I'll kind of end it there. Thanks again for everyone that joined. The recording is going to be on the website. The PowerPoint is going to be on the website. Always open to questions. I think I have a seminar coming up next week on the valuations again, the valuation sessions. So back to that. And yeah, we'll just continue on with really all the content. If there's any suggestions on how I can improve this or anything else you want me to kind of bring up or present on, I'm happy to do so. I'm very flexible. I like sharing knowledge and data and kind of what I'm looking at. So if you have any ideas, I'm happy to listen. And it may not be right away that I can get to it, but this idea was brought up to me probably a few months ago that somebody wanted to know how they can do the macro themselves as I was spending less and less time on it or presenting them less and less often. So, stuff like this, I really enjoy sharing stuff that makes us all more knowledgeable about energy, oil, what's going on, this kind of thing. I think the energy ignorance has reached a embarrassing level in general society. So anything I can do, I'm happy to do so. And yeah, thanks again. Have a great rest of your weekend, and we will catch you at the next Twitter space or the next presentation.